Welcome to KBVR Nightly News. I'm Kornbau.
And I'm Campbell.
So, how was your weekend? Did your dad come down?
No, my dad did not. He's up in Idaho right now, so
oh, really?
No chance of him. How about yourself?
Actually, it was interesting. He was supposed to show up about 9 o'clock in the morning and didn't come till about 1:30. So
sounds about like my family, actually.
We had fun. We did all the dad things, but I tell you,
all right.
Entertaining your parents is pretty exhausting.
Especially in Corvallis. Nothing to do. But now let's take a look at some news.
All right.
Looks like Oregon taxpayers may get their so-called kicker checks after all. Taxpayers get refunds every 2 years if the amount of tax collections is more than 2% higher than expected. It appears last year that Oregonians would get no refund for 1999 because of a slight downturn in the state economy. Republican leaders in the legislature say the economy has improved early this year and taxpayers could get a total of $10 million. Democrat Governor John Kitzhaber didn't even plan for the kicker when he wrote his budget for the next 2 years. The new estimates could set up a battle over whether to spend the kicker surplus. 2 years ago, a similar fight did take place when Democrats wanted to spend the excess money on schools, but the Republican-controlled legislature got its way and refunds were sent back to taxpayers. Some of those refunds ran into the hundreds of dollars. And a Panamanian freighter ran aground last Thursday in Coos Bay area. The freighter was off the port of Coos Bay waiting out bad weather when the wind and high waves rushed it aground. The 23-man Filipino crew was airlifted to shore by the Coast Guard on Friday. A break in the weather on the coast has allowed a salvage tugboat to leave Astoria and head south to help free the freighter. The 200-foot ship called Salvage Chief left about noon today and will take at least a day to get to the Coos Bay on the southern coast. The Salvage Chief has been the rescue ship business for 40 years. It's that same tug that helped free the Exxon Valdez. Workers are confident that the tug will be able to dislodge the 600-foot-long new Carissa. The ship has no cargo aboard, but is carrying nearly 400,000 gallons of diesel fuel. Salvage crews say they can refloat the ship without spilling any of the fuel.
Jordan's King Hussein was laid to rest Monday, his body wrapped in a white shroud and lifted into the grave by his sons. The Marduk, who died Sunday after a long battle with cancer, was buried in the Hassemite family cemetery on the grounds of his royal palace in Amman. Before the burial, Hussein's son, King Abdul bin al-Hussein, led mourners in prayers at the Hamza bin Abdul Muttalib Brigade's mosque. Hussein began his final journey through the fog-shrouded streets of Amman earlier Monday with a funeral procession from the Bab el-Salam Palace to Ragadan Palace. Hundreds of thousands of grieving Jordanians occasionally halted the procession as the flag-draped coffin atop a flower-covered jeep made its way slowly through the city. At the palace, Hussein's body lay in a state in the throne room, while hundreds of family members and international dignitaries paid their final respects. Jewish leaders and top German officials said that Monday they had made progress towards setting up a fund that would compensate victims of Nazi labor camps and lift the threat of Holocaust-era claims against German firms. The talks appeared to remove key obstacles to Deutsche Bank's planned $10.1 billion acquisitions of Bankers Trust, the 8th largest U.S. bank. The deal had been jeopardized by revelations of the German bank's role in building a Nazi death camp.
A Nike television ad has an Ohio congressman protesting. Democratic Congressman Dennis Kucinich disagrees with the ad, which shows a kid on inline skates racing a truck to a railroad crossing. Kucinich says the Nike ad is dangerous because it encourages children to race trains. One parent says she was appalled when she saw the ad because her 13-year-old son crosses railroad tracks every day on the way to school. Kucinich told some parents yesterday in Ohio that he'll give Beaverton-based Nike a week to respond, then will ask PTA groups, youth groups, and police departments to pressure the company. Kucinich was instrumental last year in getting 2 major railroads to divert trains from Cleveland's suburbs and put it in safety measures. About 30 American Airlines flights were canceled today as pilots continued their work slowdown. More than 300 flights have been canceled since Friday. The slowdown apparently stems from sluggish negotiations on a work agreement for pilots of Reno Air, recently acquired by American. The pilots say American has to pay lower-paid Reno pilots at American airline rates. Federal law bars a strike over such an issue, but pilots can refuse to volunteer for overtime, which causes flight delays and cancellations.
The Independent Ethics Committee report due Tuesday on the Salt Lake City Olympic scandal details a pattern of deception involving the two top organizing committee officials. Sources close to the investigation identified the two officials to be singled out as former Salt Lake Organization Committee SLOC President Tom Welsh and former SLOC Vice President Dave Johnson. Welsh resigned from the committee in 1997 after pleading no contest to a charge of spousal abuse. Johnson was asked to resign early last month after it was alleged that scholarships, cash, and lavish gifts had been given to members of the International Olympic Committee and their families before Salt Lake City was named host of the 2002 Winter Games.
Now we'll take a look at sports with Mike Stevens. So how about them Beavs?
How about them? Not too good on the road anymore.
Yeah. But at home, we've got it made.
Yeah, used to be good everywhere. Back before Jimmy Anderson came along and screwed up the program. But not to point any fingers.
That's an opinion by Mike Stevens. But go right on ahead with the rest of it.
Okay. Well, starting off, Atlanta Falcons receiver Tony Martin has been charged in a federal court with money laundering and conspiracy. The charges stem from his longtime relationship with known drug dealer Ricky Bromley. Martin was released on a $250,000 bond and will be arraigned next Tuesday. Martin had been under investigation for months, but his name just appeared Monday on the third superseding indictment in the case, which also involves cocaine and heroin trafficking. Martin is not accused of involvement in Bromley's drug business. Prosecutors say he wrote checks to lease luxury cars and pay legal fees for his friend because Bromley's lawyers would not take cash. Martin caught 5 passes in the Falcons' loss to Denver in the Super Bowl just a week ago in Miami. All the upsets in college basketball last week made for a pretty good shakeup in this week's AP poll. The Duke Blue Devils, who are riding an 18-game winning streak, are the nation's new #1 team, replacing a Connecticut team which lost for the first time last week. Connecticut falls to #2 after their loss to Syracuse and win over then #4 Stanford yesterday. Auburn, who climbed to #3, has not been ranked that high since they were #2 in February of 1959. Rounding out the rest of the top 10 are Cincinnati, Michigan State, Stanford, Maryland, Kentucky, UCLA, and Arizona. In some off-season Major League Baseball news, Cecil Fielder's baseball career has certainly come full circle. The designated hitter has signed a minor league deal with Toronto 14 years after breaking into the majors with the Blue Jays. Fielder's production has slipped dramatically in the last 2 years. He batted only .233 with 17 homers and 69 RBIs with Anaheim and Cleveland last season. Also, the Texas Rangers have avoided arbitration with Aaron Seeley, who won a career-high 19 games last season. Seeley received a 1-year deal worth over $5.5 million after helping the Rangers to their second AL West title in 3 years. And now we'll take a look at some scores from around the NBA. First off, Charlotte over Miami 94-91, while Boston loses at Orlando by 17. In top 25 basketball, number 16 Miami wins against number 18 Syracuse 76-63, while Charleston beats Virginia Military Institute. And then in NHL, St. Louis over the Panthers 5-4, while San Jose blanks Phoenix 3-0. Spawn comic book creator Todd McFarlane has revealed he was the anonymous bidder for Mark McGwire's historic 70th home run ball. The self-proclaimed psycho fan and sports geek paid over $3 million for the ball at an auction last month. McFarlane says he'd like to occasionally loan it to the Hall of Fame and make it available to charities to raise money. He also owns McGwire's home run balls number 63, 67, 68, and 69, as well as Sammy Sosa's 61st and 66th home run balls. With the season getting into full swing, the NBA handed out the first fines of this young season, and it was no surprise who was the first one to receive one. Houston Rockets forward Charles Barkley was fined $5,000 for shouting obscenities towards fans during Friday's season-opening loss to the Los Angeles Lakers. Barkley also taunted the fans with hand gestures. Atlanta's Steve Smith and New Jersey's Kendall Gill were the other two players who were fined today. They each received $2,500 fines for fighting near the locker rooms. Saturday, Georgia Dome security and members of the Fulton County Sheriff's Department had to separate the two players. And finally, UCLA's men's basketball team avenged last month's 2-point loss to the Beavers at Gill Coliseum with an 85-67 home victory over the Beavers yesterday at Pauley Pavilion. UCLA got 20 points from Baron Davis to get the win. Oregon State hung tough in the first half before falling apart in the second. The Utes return to action this Thursday when they play host to Washington at Gill. And now we'll take a look at some public service announcements.
Welcome back to KBVR Nightly News. So let's take a look at tonight's weather. I guess you saw today's snowy yet cold conditions.
Yeah, it was a surprise to us all. I kind of was sitting in class and looked out the window, and there was some snow coming down, but then the rain came and took it away. However, it looks like tonight we might have a little more snow. It's going to drop down to freezing, so it might stick for the morning.
That's what I'm excited. Actually just 2 hours ago I decided I'm going skiing.
Yeah,
so
definitely.
It's inspiration to me.
Yeah, I heard that for lots of people. Okay, let's look at the current conditions right now. Okay, it's 37 degrees out there, getting close to freezing. The skies are cloudy. The barometer is 29.86 and rising, with a humidity at 34% and south winds at 6 miles per hour. Okay, and if you look at our Tuesday evening forecast, we have some snow in here. This low pressure you see is the dry air we saw yesterday. It's all moving towards the Midwest. Over here they have some high pressure coming in, bringing in some rainstorms. And down in the south it looks pretty warm. Let's look at the national forecast. Okay, and for the national forecast, we've got obviously our coldness up in the north and down south, warm. Texas is having record highs right now as it's 80 degrees. On our side of the earth, we have 40s here. You'll see tomorrow it's going to warm up quite a bit actually. So we'll just have these freezing conditions for just a little while, just long enough to maybe see a little white stuff. And then down in California, it's a little warmer. Let's look at the forecast. Okay, we have decreasing snow showers with lows in the 30s and southwest winds 5 to 15 miles an hour. And Tuesday, snow showers high in the morning, highs in the lower 40s. Tuesday night, we have decreasing snow showers, lows near 30. And Wednesday, chance of showers, highs in the lower 40s. Okay, so it looks like a lot of snow's coming up there.
Any much rain besides that, or is just...
Yeah, well, sort of, not as bad as it's been. Over this weekend we had the practically a tsunami around here, so but it looks like it's going to get a lot nicer. So.
Oh, thank you for the forecast.
Yeah, no problem.
And now we'll take a look at some more public service announcements. Welcome back to KBVR Nightly News. Now we have a little entertainment segment. Nice to have you back, Case.
Well, thank you very much. Entertainment's being kind, I think, but we'll see here. Got a little news about Valentine's Day. It's the big week up until Valentine's Day, so I'm sure Hallmark's cashing in right now.
Oh, yeah, I can hear the cash registers going as we speak.
Don't
Good
depress
deal.
me.
Good
Don't
deal.
depress me.
Sorry. Well, should we get this started then?
Let's go for it.
Alrighty. To open the night up, good evening, everyone. I am Case Bowman with your entertainment news. A segment by any other name is not a Case segment. I'm confused. Anyway, how sick and tired are you folks of hearing about and seeing those prima donnas known as NBA athletes? Well, it could get worse. Season ticket holders for some teams will receive Valentines apologizing for the inconvenience of the labor dispute this past season. It will begin, "Dear fans, we are tired of the greed, gluttony, and flashy nature of the system around us. We must narrow the income gap, so fire the CEOs, lawyers, and doctors, and pay us what you would have paid them. Love, Shaq Fu." Included in the promotion are Reggie Miller, Tim Hardaway, and Jason Williams. So if you have a child's birthday or even a niece or nephew, let them know that instead of buying them expensive gifts, you'll donate the money to a player of their choice. Well, from Dr. J to Dr. What is that rash? In a recent publication, it was noted that doctors were not only writing poorly on notes and patient files, but were writing things that just weren't true. They were plain bizarre. For example, the lab test indicated abnormal liver function. Or another favorite, she is numb from the toes down. Two more exciting quips follow. While in the emergency room, she was X-rated and sent home. And finally, out of curiosity, I wanted to read what my doctor wrote about me, and I was pleasantly surprised when I read it. Exam of genitalia reveals that he is circus-sized. Thanks, Doc. Okay. It's everyone's favorite or least favorite time of the year, Valentine's Day. Yes, the time when the losers are even big losers and the lovers are even bigger lovers. A psychotherapist says love letters can be a fun thing, but just don't write too much. She once received a 12-page letter that was not romantic, but just plain annoying. I can back this up factually. Apparently my girlfriend, Carrie, wasn't impressed with my 38-page letter and nude Polaroid. Instead of going off to Rome with her for a romantic weekend and night of fun, I received my 3rd consecutive restraining order. Some people just don't have a romantic bone in their bodies. Bill Clinton is in the news again thanks to a new product the leader of the free world is marketing. Quaker Oats reports they've reached a deal with the original playa to sell Bill Clinton's Impeaches and Cream. The White House has no comment, but during my phone conversation with Mr. Clinton, he told me this. Impeaches and Cream is a cereal that will get you up in the morning and go down on you at night. Thanks, Bubba. All right. And my last story. Some art critics in Ohio don't care for Kay Carlson's painting of a nude woman. In fact, someone taped paper clothes on the picture and wrote a complaint to the mayor. The painting has been removed for fear that it may be damaged. The artist doesn't see what the big fuss is about because she feels the female body is beautiful. I too don't see what the problem is. So in protest of those atrocities, I want to get naked on public access for all of you. Shall we do this?
Oh my goodness.
Wow. Thought that'd go over better. That's all I got for you.
God. Thanks, I guess.
I didn't think I'd be that nervous.
That was entertaining. I almost laughed.
Always happen like that. Sorry.
I'm not going to make no comment.
All right. Now let's get some more news going, I guess.
Last Thursday, 639-foot New Carissa found itself beached. Local ship pilots say that the 639-foot New Carissa and other wood chip ships have underpowered engines that complicate handling in the kind of treacherous winds that pushed the ship onto the beach last Thursday. Wood said that the ship has 6,500 to 6,700 horsepower, part of a generation of chip-hauling ships built in the 80s with an emphasis on fuel efficiency rather than power. Woods and Steve Sweet, another Coos Bay pilot, said this lack of power made it more difficult to keep the bulky ship off the beach Thursday morning when, in a matter of minutes, the wind dramatically increased in intensity and switched to blow directly onshore.
A Plattsburgh, New York woman sped through town this weekend to help an officer and then apologized for speeding. Deputy Daniel Kuchel was struggling with a drunken driving suspect on the side of the road. Police say the woman exceeded the speed limit to get to a phone and call police and report the incident. Minutes later, help arrived, the deputy was safe, and the suspect was in custody. The woman never gave her name to the police dispatcher when she reported the incident, but she did apologize for speeding to make the call. The deputy says that he's glad she did it. And HBO is distancing itself from an award-winning film that may or may not be a documentary. It's called Frat House, and it picked up a prize, as well as glowing reviews at the Sundance Film Festival. The film is supposedly a documentary about fraternities. This is news to some frat members at Pennsylvania's Muhlenberg College. The members say the filmmakers showed up one day in 1997 and said they were making a fictional comedy billed as a sort of Animal House for the 90s. There are new allegations that students were paid to act out cruel scenes of hazing, and although the filmmakers deny it, HBO is washing its hands of the film it financed. A network executive says there's no way it will air on the cable channel.
Every year, the lives of hundreds of lost or injured people fall into the hands of Oregon's largely volunteer search and rescue crews, many of which are barely financed, have minimal training, and lack detailed direction. Thousands of volunteers serve as the backbone of county search crews, risking their own safety to find or rescue 400 people in 1997 alone. But the searches sometimes go awry. When 8-year-old Derek Engelburston was lost in a blizzard in early December on Pelican Butte, Klamath County's search coordinator delayed launching his full crew for more than 5 hours after the first 911 call. That delay and other key decisions have been severely criticized by many, even within law enforcement circles. Despite weeks of intensive searching, the boy was not found and now is presumed dead. Drenched and shivering, with his dream home stuck a few hundred yards short of its destination, high-tech entrepreneur Bruce Campbell nonetheless felt like a very lucky man Saturday. Between midnight and 9 a.m., the genuine Boeing 727 jetliner that Campbell plans to call home traveled its final 14 miles of Republic Park property from its former base as a passenger plane in Athens, Greece, to its rustic new setting in the rolling hills of southwest Washington County. That left the hulking Olympic Airways jet, clipped of its wings, tail, and nose for the trip, sitting just inches off Holy Hill Road due to extreme rain. It stood incongruously next to a grove of walnut trees in the driveway of Campbell's very understanding neighbors, Chris and Paul Denfeld. To Campbell, the juxtaposition of a man-made metallic object against the earth and trees that dominate his neighborhood of 25 years is a most pleasing sight.
The death of King Hussein will not have much impact on Jordan's policies towards its Mideast neighbors and the West. American officials and Mideast scholars have not noticed much change at all. There is a general agreement that newly crowned King Abdullah will pretty much follow the same road his father took, continuing policies of moderation. The only difference expected is that Abdullah has no real leadership experience, and that makes it unlikely he'll be a forceful presence as his father was. One expert at a Washington Institute for Near East Policy says Jordan is in a dangerous part of the world, with some dangerous neighbors. He's waiting to see what Iraqi leader Saddam Hussein and Syrian leader Haiz Assad do. Maybe you can remember when gas was 20 cents a gallon, but the fact of the matter is, when you just adjust things for inflation, the price of gas is now the lowest in history. That's the word from industry analyst Trilly Lundberg. Her weekly survey finds the average price of a gallon of gas in the U.S. is just over $1.01. And that's down nearly a penny from just 2 weeks ago. The good times for motorists are far from over, Lundberg says. There is no reason to believe prices will rise anytime soon. It's bad news for gas stations, but Lundberg sees a plus for the economy. What it comes down to, she says, is that cheap gas may encourage Americans to drive to the stores and spend, thereby helping retail sales. And that's some news for us.
I don't know about cheapening gas prices if I'm going to go spend more, but it'll be a lot easier on me.
It's still nice to see it down to about $1 a gallon. That's quite a nice thing.
Yep.
And now let's take a look at what's going on in Corvallis over the weekend and the week.
All right. February 11th, there's a men's basketball game versus Washington. It costs some money if you're a student or just a regular spectator. If you want any information on that, call 737-4455, and that's at Gill Coliseum at 7:07.
And February 12th, the gymnastics faces California at home in Gill Coliseum. Start time is at 7 p.m. It'll cost a little bit of money, and if you have any more information or questions, dial 737-4455.
February 19th, there's another basketball game. It's the women versus Arizona. That's, again, going to cost you some money. For any information, 737-4455. And, again, that's at Gill Coliseum at 7:05 p.m.
And that'll do it for events. But this weekend also, February 13th, since it wasn't on there, there's a ballroom dance. It'll start at 8 o'clock in the MU ballroom. It'll cost $3, I believe, for students, but it's a good time.
Interesting. I still plan on going skiing, though.
Hopefully, if it snows, you can just go skiing in your backyard. And that'll do it for news for us tonight. Thanks for joining, and we'll see you again tomorrow.
Good night.